I never expected a simple Saturday morning to change my life. I was just out in my backyard, half awake, coffee in hand, thinking about mowing the lawn and fixing the loose shutter on my porch. The sun was barely up, and the air carried that quiet stillness that only exists before the world fully wakes up, but then my new neighbor, a woman I'd spoken to only twice since she'd moved in, stepped up to the fence dividing our yards. She looked nervous, hands fidgeting, eyes red like she hadn't slept. She took a shaky breath, leaned closer, and whispered words I'll never forget. "I haven't had a man in 2 years," she said softly, her voice cracking. "Would you help me with that?" For a moment, the world froze. My mind instantly jumped to assumptions. But when she lifted her eyes to mine, I realized this wasn't what it sounded like. This was something deeper, something broken, something quietly begging for kindness, and I was about to learn that sometimes people phrase their pain in the most surprising ways. Before I continue with the story, if you enjoy emotional, real-life storytelling that warms the heart, make sure you subscribe to the channel, Tales River, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps spread more stories of kindness and humanity. Now, let's get back to what happened next. Her name was Melissa, though I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was that she stood on the other side of that old wooden fence looking like a person carrying the weight of years on her shoulders. That I cleared my throat, partly to buy time, partly because her words stunned me. What do you mean?" I finally managed. She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "I should have phrased that better," she said, rubbing her forehead. "I meant, I haven't had anyone around. No help. No support. My ex-husband left 2 years ago. And now everything in my life is falling apart, including my house. I saw you fixing things around your place, Anne. I wondered if you might help me with a few repairs." Her voice trembled at the end, and just like that, everything made sense. She wasn't asking for romance. She wasn't asking for anything inappropriate. She was asking for help, the kind most people are too proud or too scared to ask for. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and smiled gently. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I can help you." Her shoulders relaxed like she'd been holding tension for years. That was the beginning. That I followed her to her backyard. The grass was overgrown, the shed door was hanging sideways, and a broken gutter was dripping steadily onto a warped wooden deck. The house looked tired, like it had been waiting for someone to care again. "I used to know how to do all this," she said, wrapping her arms around herself. "Or rather, I used to have someone who did. Now it's just me. And work. And trying my best not to fall apart every day." She said it with a smile, but it wasn't a happy one. That I could have just fixed the gutter and walked away. I could have helped her that one morning and considered it enough. But something in her tone, something fragile, made me pause. Kindness isn't always planned. Sometimes it's just given. "Melissa," I said softly, "you're not alone. Not anymore." Her eyes filled instantly with tears. She looked away, wiping them with the back of her hand. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "Maybe not yet," I said, "but everyone needs a neighbor. And everyone deserves kindness." She nodded, swallowing hard. So I got to work. For the next few hours, we talked while I repaired the gutter, replaced the shed hinge, and cleared some of the overgrown vines creeping up her porch railings. She told me how she'd moved across the country to escape a marriage that had drained her spirit. How she'd been trying to rebuild her life slowly, paycheck by paycheck. How she avoided asking for help because she didn't want to be a burden. "I grew up hearing that women should handle everything," she said. "But life gets heavy. And sometimes the smallest things feel impossible." I knew exactly what she meant. I'd been alone for a long time too. Maybe not in the same way, but loneliness wears many faces. And one thing I'd learned in life was that a single act of kindness can pull someone back from the edge of feeling invisible. Around noon, I finished the last repair and wiped the sweat from my forehead. Melissa brought out 2 glasses of lemonade and handed one to me with a shy smile. "You didn't have to do all this," she said. "I know," I replied. "That's why it matters." She blinked slowly, taking in the words. "I think that's what I've missed most," she whispered. "Not just a man around the house. But kindness. Just kindness." We sat on her porch steps for a while, drinking lemonade, listening to the soft hum of the neighborhood waking up. There was something peaceful about it. Something healing. Over the next few weeks, we became real neighbors, checking in, sharing meals, talking over the fence like old friends. I'd help her with repairs when she needed it, and she'd bring me homemade muffins or fresh coffee as thanks. But our exchanges were less about chores and more about connection. One evening, she came over holding a small potted plant. "For your porch," she said. "To say thank you." I took it gently. "You don't have to repay kindness," I said. "No," she replied, "but I want to pass it forward." Her voice was steady this time. Stronger. Brighter. That's the thing about kindness, it's contagious. It spreads in ways we don't expect. One rainy afternoon, months after that first awkward confession at the fence, we found ourselves talking about life again. The sky was gray, and the air smelled like wet earth. We stood under the overhang between our houses, listening to the rain. "I was embarrassed that day," she said quietly. "For how?" I asked. "For how desperate I sounded." "You weren't desperate," I said. "You were human." She smiled gently. "Maybe. But I'm glad you saw past the words." I shrugged. "Sometimes people say things that come out messy. Pain usually does." She looked at me, lips trembling just slightly. "I think kindness saved me," she whispered. "Yours?" I shook my head. "No. You saved yourself. I just gave you a hand when you reached out." But deep down, her words settled into a warm corner of my heart, because even if I didn't save her, I felt honored to have played a small part in her healing. Kindness isn't always heroic. It isn't grand or dramatic. Most of the time, it's quiet. Simple. A repaired fence. A shared conversation. A moment of understanding when someone feels too ashamed to ask for help, and it grows, slowly, steadily, turning strangers into neighbors and neighbors into friends. Months passed, and Melissa flourished. She started gardening again, painting her porch, baking in her kitchen on weekends. She laughed more. Smiled more. Lived more. Her house, once tired and neglected, now felt like home again. One day she called out from her yard, "Hey! I haven't had a man in the house for repairs in months now." I laughed. "That's a good sign." "It is," she said proudly. "Because I learned how to do most of it myself." She winked, and I felt a quiet joy settle in me. Kindness had not just helped her. It had empowered her. When I look back at that moment by the fence, the nervous confession, the misunderstood words, I realize something important. People rarely say exactly what they mean when they're hurting. But if we take a moment to listen, to look deeper, to offer a hand instead of judgment, we may discover someone standing on the edge of giving up, quietly hoping someone will reach out. Kindness doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be given. So wherever you are, whatever you're facing, remember this: a single act of kindness, offered freely, without expectation, can change someone's entire world. And sometimes, without even realizing it, it can change yours too. Spread kindness today. You never know who might be standing on the other side of the fence, waiting for it.